Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Thomas
And I'm Mary Thomas.
of Thomas & Thomas PC, also known as the Sales Tax Sisters. And today we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, audits. And specifically a question I always get from people. How long will my audit last?
Yes, and the answer is
It depends.
I know it's that pesky answer everybody hates.
Yeah.
But there are so many things that go into that. And so I'm going to be quiet because Stephanie is our person who's the front line of audits. So
yeah, but she's never quiet. She's going to chime in. So basically, audits, how long your audit lasts depends on a number of factors, including your record keeping. Your records, if they are not easy to understand, if they're incomplete, if they're hard copies, if they're not electronic, that affects how long your audit lasts. In terms of documentation, if you don't have all the documentation that you need to have on file, well, that you have time to obtain documentation. Go to your customers, ask for certificates in certain jurisdictions, depending on the time requirements, as well as go to vendors and request invoices that you may not have. Because remember, when you get audited, they're not only going to be looking at your sales, they're going to be looking at purchases as well. So you may need to go to vendors and ask for copies of invoices for purchases that you have made. That takes time.
exemption certificates, getting exemption certificates can take a really long time.
Exactly. And so you don't get a letter saying you're going to be audited and then 2 days later they're out there. It never works out like that. They give you a laundry list of all the documents that they would like to see. And they give you time to get those documents together. And then they usually schedule an appointment in order to talk to you so they can understand your business as well as start reviewing the documents. So it's a process. It's not something that normally lasts 2 days. And depending on the complexity of your records and the auditor's schedule, because remember, you're not the only audit they're dealing with. And what may be going on in the audit office or the Department of Revenue or whatever, they may be a little backed up. It all depends. The timing of everything. But know that it is a process. It is not going to start on Monday and end on Tuesday. It never works out like that.
So in fact, it worked out like that once.
Maybe once.
And the reason it worked out for that client is they were really small. And I'm going to tell you, they had everything in boxes. Everything this auditor wanted to see was in boxes. And when she sat down and she reconciled, and we talked about this before, when she sat down and she reconciled what they reported as sales, what they reported as taxable sales, and when she looked at their federal income tax returns, all those numbers tied. There was no question.
There are no questions.
There's no question as to why does it say you made $10 million in sales, on your federal income tax return, but you reported $6 million in sales as total sales on your sales tax return. She didn't have any question like that. All those numbers tied. When she did her little test of, okay, what did they tax? Okay, everybody doesn't have to do this. They taxed everything. There was no question.
But that all goes into the complexity of your business.
Yeah.
Not only in terms of your documentation and your records, but the complexity of your business. If you're doing a lot of complex transactions, if you have sales where some of what you do is taxable, whereas some of what you do is not taxable, or some of what you sell is taxable and some of it isn't, that can extend the audit in terms of time, because an auditor has to understand your business.
I think that's more about the documentation than anything else, because when you have mixed transactions, and that's what we call transactions that have both taxable and non-taxable elements, depending on how you document that, that's not going to take an auditor long to go back and look at that and see what's going on with you.
But that's different than if you just, for example, just throw out, for example, that's different than if you only sell water.
That's true.
And everybody knows water is not taxable. That is simple.
Here in Texas.
That is simple. Versus you sell water, you sell, candy, you sell soda, though they're different taxability
Yeah,
things going on there.
the thing about it is that I still think that because, depending on what kind of grocery store you use, all that's computerized, which is what you said before about having computerized
Rise
records. A lot of times what we find is that when we have a client who says, why is this taking so long, and they're really unhappy about it, what they have forgotten is their own part in that, and that is that the auditor asked for XYZ, you didn't have it. And so they pulled out of the field and gave you a couple of months to get it. And while you were scrambling to get it, time was ticking by. And the only thing you perceive is, oh my God, it's been 5 months. And you aren't thinking about, yeah, but 3 months of that was you actually pulling the records together that this person needed to see.
Or you have issues because you had system conversions and,
natural disasters,
which, we're in Texas, we get
natural disasters.
Yeah.
And there's one thing that I think everybody needs to understand about what happens with a natural disaster is that auditor may feel bad for you. They typically do. Auditors aren't bad people. They may feel bad for you, but they still need to see the documentation.
They still need to see the records, which also leads to sometimes having to go to vendors in terms of purchases and say, listen, we lost our purchase invoices because it flooded. Can you provide this?
Yeah.
And that takes time too. So to wrap it up, how long is your audit going to take? It depends.
It really does. And the thing about it is that we say all of this because you need to be patient with this process because it is a process. And understand your part in it. If it took you 6 months to get the records together, then there was no way it could have been done in 2 weeks. But you also want to keep your eye on what's going on with your audit because you don't want it to drag out longer than it really has to. I think that there is a balance whereby you have to ask if you're handling your audit yourself. We always try to get a time frame of, okay, we gave them this. Let's give them a reasonable amount of time to process it. And if we don't hear from them, call them up and say, hey, or send an email and say, hey, how is this looking? What else do you need from me? Be proactive. If you're proactive, it's going to help shorten that timeline because unfortunately, the squeaky wheel does get the grease.
Yeah, but the important thing that you need to understand is you must manage your expectations.
Exactly.
This is not a process that goes quickly, 9 times out of 10.
Exactly. So with that, if any of you are being audited, take a deep breath, calm down, start, pull together your summary documents, and then the auditor is going to tell you what they want to do the deep dive. And you go in and you give them what they need to see or as close to it as you can possibly get. And it's all going to shake out. Take a deep breath. Don't panic. You've got this.
Yeah.
So with that, if you like the video, please thumb it up and please consider subscribing. And we thank all of you for looking at these videos and for all of your feedback. We answer all of it and we do really, truly appreciate it. So that, we're going to say goodbye for now.
Bye.